Good evening. The chairperson has tendered an apology as she is still consulting with the doctor. So in her absence, we'll have to elect an acting chairperson as per Rule 159 of the National Assembly. See that the committee is curating, so I'm going to call for nominations for an acting chairperson to proceed over the meeting. Is there any nominations for acting chairperson?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Honorable Kavan Chaba.
I propose the name to nominate our Honorable Whip Direko, Dikeleti Direko. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for the nomination of Ms. Direko?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Groenewald. I see Mr. Direko's hand is up. Honorable Direko. Honorable Direko. It seems that Honorable Direko has some network challenges. Is there any other nominations for acting chairperson? Well, we try to get Honorable Direko back.
My name is Kanya Kweza.
Kesa.
I am proposing the name of Honorable Gigi Mpumza. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for Honorable Mpumza to be the acting chairperson?
Yes, my name is Pretty Kabanchaba. I second the name.
Thank you, Honorable Kabanchaba. Mr. Mpumza, you've been duly elected as the acting chairperson. You can now take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Good evening, honorable members. May I please ask you, can I ask you, Sharon, to fly the agenda on the screen so that when we begin to start our meeting? Sharon, are you with me? Oops.
I'm with you, Chair. I'll flight the agenda now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sharon. The agenda of our meeting has been flighted on the screen, and may I quickly welcome you. And in welcoming you, honorable members, indicate that today the portfolio committee has to consider the annual performance plan of the Department of Traditional Affairs. And these annual plans had been extensively citing the role of the institution, particularly their role role they are playing towards extending their role, which is envisaged, towards playing a role around gender-based violence, femicide, as well as inclusive of the LGBT community. So we are also very much involved that these matters, as the committee we have been considering them, as well as the role that the department is playing around the role of initiation together with the National House of Traditional Leaders, and the area that they are playing around the research in relation to the disputes in the area of traditional leadership. We are now to consider extensively those matters as the committee through this AAP that will be presented by the department. In those few words, you are welcome. May I quickly move to the apologies? Sharing any apologies on the table today? Sharon?
Sorry,
Sharon?
Chairperson.
Yeah,
An apology from the minister. She won't be able to attend the meeting due to prior commitments. There's also the apology of Mr. Mapika that is on sick leave, and the apology from Ms. Eleanor Spies. She is within in a constituency, and in the apology from the chairperson that will be joining later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice. Can you confirm that we are operating as members so that we can proceed with the meeting?
Yes, Chairperson, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I've already welcomed. Yes.
It's Bella. I've joined the meeting, but I'm not well. I thought I will be okay from yesterday, but I can see I will not be able to finish off with the rest of the meeting. Yeah. But I'm here for partly, but I'll have to depart early. I'm not well. I'm just.
All right, thank you, Deputy Minister. We welcome that. And, yeah, okay. We hope that he will recover soon, and we are with you and hope that he will recover soon. You are also welcome, Deputy Minister, and the delegation from the department. Thank you. May I now allow you, Minister, to preamble, that is the presentation by your department of the APPs, your remarks.
Thank you, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, and to all honorable members present, the DG and the staff from the department. And yeah, thank you very much for obviously the procedural mechanism that we present to the Portfolio Committee, the annual performance plans that get revised annually. So they will then be presenting it in terms of the mandate of the department, in terms of the vision of the department. And I see Nkosi Mahlangwe has also joined the meeting. Also greetings to Nkosi Mahlangwe as I continue. Obviously, in the revised plans, there will be programs that we have to account in terms of how did we perform them in the previous year, but also there might be new programs that we are indicating. And as you will know, that most of the work of the department is also dependent on other departments partnering and ensuring that we're able to achieve the intended objectives. Some departments are cooperative and working well with us, but others not. We hope, therefore, that with the TKLA, we'll be able then to really ensure a mechanism is developed to ensure that the memorandum of understandings with the rest of other departments is compliant and also is enforceable and is tied, so that when we say we're going to achieve this objective, they also play their role, because there will be agreements in the memorandum of understanding. Unfortunately, in the previous law that we've just parted from, the TGFA, it was just loose arrangements, and then most of the MOUs were never signed. They were never negotiated. Very few departments that had participated. But we hope, therefore, that going forward, will be able then to use the new law. That seems to give us more impetus for us to be able then to really ensure that the mandates as in our APPs and as within the vision and the mission are fulfilled. So, Chair, let me not waste much time and allow the officials led by the DG here to really introduce the document. And obviously, the agenda is one now. I see you have removed the other agenda, which was to honor the implementation of the indigenous and traditional Indaba. It's fine, it will be scheduled for another meeting, but for now, the only agenda that we're presenting is the APP as is in the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Mpumza, I'm done.
DG.
Chair, unmute.
Mute Honorable Mpumza.
I'm muted.
You did unmute and you muted yourself again. We are still muted, Honorable Mpumza. You have just muted again, Honorable Mpumza. I don't know what's wrong with your gadget.
I'm muted.
You are unmuted. You can see you and we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes. DG, all right?
Yes, we can hear you now. You can proceed.
Okay. Can the DG proceed? Present.
Thank you, Acting Honorable Mpumza. Could I ask the Secretariat to please assist with the loading of the presentation? Thank you indeed, Honorable Chair, Honorable members of the committee. Greetings to our Deputy Minister, the Honorable Obed Papela, the Chairperson of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Kosi Mahlangu, as well as the Deputy Chair of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Nkosikazi Mamhlauli is also in the house. Also, things to other colleagues that are in the platform. Honorable Chair, I'm joined this evening by other colleagues from the department. Our two DDGs are here, Mashandu as well as Mamukhaladi. And then we also have other officials. Our acting CFO, Re Lefoko Motlabedi, is here. Other senior managers, Dr. Bester and Mr. Mashishi, are here. Thank you once again for this opportunity to present to the committee the Department of Traditional Affairs 2021-2022 annual performance plan. If we could just ask that I be assisted to go to the next slide, which talks about the outline of the presentation. So the presentation is in two parts. The first part deals with vision, mission, values of the department. Part two then deals with the actual performance targets. Part three deals with the budget allocations, and then conclude with recommendations. Next slide, please. So this slide then just as part of the introduction, just to indicate that the purpose is to brief the committee about our 2021-2022 annual performance plan and our indicative budget allocations. Also just to confirm that this is the APP that was tabled in Parliament on the 15th of March 2021. Next slide, please. So this just information from the APP, which we have shared with the committee before on our vision, mission, and values, that it is about creating a community development-oriented institution of traditional leadership, that we want to have in place a system of traditional affairs governance, which is supportive of cooperative governance, but ultimately which leads to improved quality of life of South Africans living in traditional communities. The values are reflected there. I will not go through them. Part two on the next slide, that then begins to talk about the actual targets identified for the financial year 2021-2022. The next slide. It's the first program is administration. So if you could go to the next slide. So you'll see that here what we have done, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, is that we have taken a range of issues that relates to effective governance internally in the department, whether they relate to human resource management, whether they relate to service delivery issues, development of service delivery plans, all those issues that are required for compliance purposes. We've combined them together in the Organizational Performance Information Compliance Management Plan. And then we've taken a package of issues that relates to compliance management on finance and related issues, put them together also. So we have those two plans, and between those two plans, they capture all the key compliance issues for effective governance internal to the department that we must keep an eye on throughout the year. So those are in our APP, and we will be implementing them and monitoring progress as reflected. So all the issues that relate to payment of suppliers within 30 days, for example, all of those are packaged within these two instruments that we've captured in this slide. Then the next one goes into line function. The next slide. Move to the next slide, which talks about program 2, which is research policy and legislation. So here, the first thing here that we're dealing with, one of the outcomes cutting across the department is that of ensuring a functional institution of traditional and Khoisan leadership. So in the two line programs that we have, each one of them has to contribute towards this outcome. So we said one of the things that we will do, previously we have been focusing on an overview of the resolution of conflicts the resolution of disputes and claims in the sector. And the idea was to get a sense of what's the total number of disputes in a particular area, which ones are still outstanding, which ones have been resolved. But we've, as part of the provisions contained in the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, sections 3 to 14, that we must go deeper into this monitoring now. That in addition to collecting information on trends and indicating areas where maybe the department may need to step in and assist. But we should also study very closely the roles played in particular kingships and queenships and principal traditional leaderships to understand the role that traditional, that royal families themselves in particular play. So that those sections deal with the whole package of issues around the recognition of an heir, the removal.
Hello. Yes, I would like to book a flight from.
You are muted, DG. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I got muted automatically somewhat. So, so what we're doing here is, in addition to do an overview where we have a bird's eye view of where the disputes are, what the progress is, and so on, is to now study closely through a sample to see what are the processes being followed within particular royal families. Because this kind of work will inform the work that the minister will have to do at a point where regulations have to be issued, because the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act empowers the minister to issue regulations on particular aspects of the act where the regulations are necessary to elaborate on the implementation of the legislation. So that is linked then to the next a target there that will eventually then have a set of regulations, at least during the course of this financial year, which looks at these challenges that we are concerned about the sector. So if you go to the next slide, and it's still a part of this program 2 on research policy and legislation. So this one again talks about the implementation of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act. So and the kind of research that is going to be done here is there is this area of houses of traditional leadership, which is the local houses, where there has not been a lot of focus. So the research will be conducted on this level of houses of traditional leaderships to understand better how different provinces have gone about establishing local houses, because there is this provision, section 50 of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act, on the establishment of local houses. And whilst the provision is there, we're also saying that it might be necessary that regulations may need to be developed and issued by the minister in that regard. And we're saying that lessons from different provinces when it comes to experiences around the establishment and constituting local houses will be very, very useful in informing the regulations that will be developed. The next slide talks about the next piece of research that is going to be done during the course of this financial year. And this, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, emerged from one of the dialogues that were held this last year through the National House of Traditional Leaders, where the issue of women in traditional leadership was discussed. And one of the critical recommendations emanating from that dialogue was that the department should conduct research that seeks to document the struggles fought by women in the institution of traditional leadership, that there are women who have faced obstacles, have been resilient in this regard, others have been less successful, but these struggles are not documented. And the department should then include as a project under their research agenda a research that documents the struggles faced by women, their successes, the obstacles, and so on, but also including people with disabilities as well within the institution of traditional leadership. So this is the research that we'll be conducting during the course of this financial year. The next slide outlines the further research that we'll be doing. And this also, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, emerged from engagements that have taken place between members of the House and the Minister and Deputy Minister, which was looking specifically on this area called cultural economy. The issue raised there was that there are things that happen in traditional communities that are linked to the culture and heritage in those communities, but which have economic spin-offs. But not much is understood in terms of how that value chain works. Not much is understood in terms of who benefits the most, and much more importantly, in what ways can the cultural heritage economy made to benefit the traditional communities more. So if we have a cultural practice such as a cultural initiation, there are certain aspects of expenditure that go with that cultural activity, and a range of other cultural activities as well. You can even look at things like what is commonly known as traditional or cultural attire. Now, if there is a lot that is spent by traditional communities in this cultural economy, as we put it, how does it function? Who are the main role players there? And what are the opportunities that can be exploited to make sure that the traditional communities actually indeed benefit from this economy? So ultimately, what this branch does, Honorable Chairperson, is that it does the research. The research comes up with recommendations, and those recommendations then feed into the programs that the department develops. So you'll see under the outcomes there on the extreme left, we said the outcome there is developed communities in areas of traditional leadership, because it's not research just for the sake of research, but it's for purposes of
We are losing you, DJ.
Am I audible? Am I audible, person?
You are audible from this side, DG.
We are losing you, DJ. Is it me? Honorable members.
Yes, it's you, Chair, because the DG is clear all the time from outside.
Yeah, the Honorable Chair, Acting Chair, the DG is also, we can also hear the DG on our side. I think the problem is with your network.
It sounds like there's a problem of connectivity on the side of the Acting Chair. Honorable Chair, are you able to hear me?
You can proceed, the DG.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Director. So that's what that particular project is about. So if we could then move to the next slide. So this slide then looks at issues relating to the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act and takes them further. Because we have this act in place, what we did during this past financial year is we developed what we call an information management framework, where we were saying with our colleagues in provinces, there is information that we should consistently have about the sector in each one of the provinces. And when we report on a periodic basis, we must all be able to cover these key areas of information as covered included in the information management framework. So what we are doing now is to apply that information management framework to collect critical monitoring information about the sector. And that information we are indicating here that it will also include aspects of the implementation of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act. One of the things we have done was to issue a detailed template on the implementation of the Act itself, where we are saying to provinces that these are the steps that need to be followed, the pillars that need to be attended to towards the implementation of the Act. So we will then, throughout the financial year, be collecting information. We're just adding here one of the issues that this committee has raised before, which is that of the participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils. And this was covered in Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act. But what the passing of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act has also done was to replace Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act with a much more detailed schedule, which now elaborates in much more detail the issue of the participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils. So that will be part of the monitoring that we'll be doing for purposes of ensuring that we are able to identify blockages where there are blockages. We are able to make recommendations for interventions where necessary. And we link it to the implementation of the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, because as we point out here in the presentation, that Section 62 of the Act specifically empowers the department to monitor that particular section of the Municipal Structures Act insofar as the participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils is concerned. Thank you. Thank you. If we could then take the next slide. So now this takes us to the second program, third program, program 3, which is ISC, Institutional Support Coordination. So it also then contributes to that outcome of transformed institution of traditional leadership. So here, what we're saying is that we will be focusing on provincial houses of traditional leadership when it comes to the issue of social cohesion, because of the critical role that the institution of traditional leadership plays when it comes to social cohesion and nation building. And we'll say we'll be working with the National House and the provincial houses on their programs that seek to promote social cohesion, fight gender violence and femicide, substance abuse, but also promoting food security, as we have seen with the advent of COVID-19, that the institution of traditional leadership has been very, very active in working with communities towards promoting food security. The next slide. This slide focuses on the issue of safe initiation practices. So the focus will be on firstly awareness raising campaigns that will be conducted prior to initiation seasons, just to make sure that we assist with the state of readiness for the initiation seasons. And this is work that we do with the National House of Traditional Leaders. And then also linked to that is the issue of the actual monitoring of the guidelines that have been developed. At this stage, we're still talking about the guidelines because the customary initiation bill has not as yet come into effect, but it will serve as the legislative basis that we can then use to ensure even stricter and stronger enforcement of the regulatory requirements. But as it stands now, it will be the customary initiation guidelines that will be implemented to monitor the practice of customary initiation whenever the initiation season comes, just to indicate that given the good progress that we have seen Parliament having on the processing of the customary initiation bill, at this stage it has been passed by Parliament, and we're already looking at aspects of this bill that we can already start preparing for implementation. I mean, one of the things it will require that there should be a national initiation oversight committee. So the minister is already in touch with other ministers and other stakeholders who are supposed to nominate people to serve in that committee, to say to them, get ready, because the moment the president signs this piece of legislation, then we have to go into implementation without any delays. Next slide. This one focuses on developed communities in areas of traditional leadership. So the issue of the district development model comes in here. So what happened during this last financial year? The department developed guidelines on the participation of local houses in the district development model, looking at local houses as, if you like, the equivalent of districts when you look at the structure of government, so that at that level of the district, it should be very clear to local houses what the district development model is about and how they can contribute towards the model. So the guidelines firstly explain what the district development model is about, what it seeks to achieve, and then it looks at a process where it indicates that we expect traditional leaders to step in at the level of, for example, the community needs assessments, because they are very close to the communities. They should be able to inform the needs assessments that out of which then you will have what we call one plan for each district, integrated plan of all the things that need to be implemented in that district. So that plan should have been informed by the actual experiences on the ground that traditional leaders will be bringing to the process. But also once the plan gets implemented, traditional leaders are closer to communities. They see if the implementation is really taking place or not, so that they then become part of the actual monitoring and part of the recommendations for steering decisions that may need to be taken to inform the enhancement of the implementation process. We've also included, there is this section in the Traditional in Cohesion Leadership Act, Section 24, which says that traditional councils may enter into partnerships with government and other role players. So they can enter into partnerships with municipalities, with the provincial departments, national departments, with the private sector, with other development partners for purposes of development in their localities. Now, this was one area which was not as elaborated as in the Framework Act as it is now, so that it provides further guidance on how these partnerships can be leveraged for purposes of development at a local level. So we thought we should focus critically on this area to see to what extent these partnerships are actually being entered into, the successes there, and offer advice where advice needs to be offered to make sure that the partnerships can actually be leveraged to benefit the communities. Next slide. This slide then continues on the line of development in communities under the jurisdiction of traditional leadership, and is that program that we've spoken to the committee before Agrarian Revolution, that it was piloted previously. Some things didn't go well, others went well, and having learned lessons from that, we then focused on a process of remodeling the program, working together with the National House of Traditional Leaders. So the remodeled program has been done, and the idea now is to go into implementation during the course of this financial year. The success of this will be driven also by the partnerships that we'll enter into. One of the levers that we are going to use is the MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, that we have entered into between ourselves and the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, so that when they talk about agricultural projects, they talk about planting seasons and so on and so on, we are walking that path together with the Institution of Traditional Leadership for the benefit of work in this area. Obviously, one of the useful instruments now is going to be what the Institution of Traditional Leadership has come up with in the form of Invest Rural master plan, because that master plan provides a blueprint that can be taken around as we go into these partnerships. To say these are the ideas that the institution has come up with, and let's use these ideas. And when we think about Agrarian Revolution program, let's locate it within the ideas, the concept, the framework that the Institution of Traditional Leadership has come up with. There is also work around communal land tenure policy. This is a matter that has been on the table for some time, where there has been an expectation that there will be clear direction on what policy framework will guide the issue of land tenure, communal land tenure. And what has happened here following benchmarking study tours that government, together with representatives of traditional leadership, undertook to selected countries and other work that was done through desktop case studies. There are proposals that government has developed. And the idea here is to make sure that those proposals are consulted on quite widely. And obviously our interest here is in terms of the participation of the Institution of Traditional Leadership in those consultations, So this is what this target is about, to make sure that those consultations take place. In fact, they've already started. They've started with the National House of Traditional Leaders, but that was just the first of many other consultative processes that will follow on the land tenure, communal land tenure policy. Thank you. If we can move to the next one. Okay, and this one focuses more on the functionality of local houses of traditional leaders. What we have sought to do here is to develop what one may regard as criteria for functionality. So if you look what the legislation says, how do you say, when do you say that a local house of traditional leadership is functioning in terms of its meetings, the responsibilities it has in terms of legislation, and so on and so on. So what you then have is a set of criteria of functionality, and we're saying that we'll be looking at all these houses, local houses of traditional leadership in these provinces, making sure that we monitor their functionality against those criteria, with a view to establish areas where there are gaps, where there are difficulties, so that we are able to bring them to the attention of provinces, the attention of MINMEC, the attention of the minister and deputy minister. The idea here is that ultimately, if the local houses of traditional leaders are not functioning as well as they should, then there might be challenges when it comes to them playing their role in the district development model as well. Next slide, please. These ones now go into the areas of training and capacity building. So there will be a focus there on issues of gender-based violence and femicide. It's a project that the National House is pursuing as well. But we are indicating here as well that as part of the rollout of the implementation of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act, there is a program that has been developed in partnership with the local government CETA, with a number of modules. The first module has been done already, and now we are focusing on rolling out the implementation of that induction module, and we've already established contact with provinces to say, let's do a scheduling here in terms of the actual dates when that rollout will take place. Next slide. Part 3, Honorable Chair, takes us into the budget allocations. If you go to the next slide. So this slide then shows a summary of the budget. So if we look at the extreme left hand, it shows the different programs. So the first top part of it looks at the budget according to the 3 programs: administration, research, policy, legislation, and institutional support and coordination. And the bottom part of that then looks at the same budget, but presented in terms of economic classification around compensation of employees, goods and services, and so on. So that shows that if you look at the first column there, talks about the audited outcome, what the budget was for 17-18, for 18-19, for 19-20. And then next up, it just shows for 2021, which is the adjusted appropriation. So it shows that it's 161,685,000. Then the outer 3 columns towards the right show the MTF estimates for the 3 years starting 2021 up to 2023. So the year that we are focusing on, which is 2021-2022, the total budget there is 171,392,000, and it's split according to those 3 programs as I've indicated. And then the bottom part shows the same budget, but split in terms of economic classification: how much goes to compensation of employees, how much goes to transfers and subsidies, how much goes to payments of capital assets, and so on. So a critical issue to keep in mind there also is the fact that there is a huge chunk of that budget, 46 million from 21-22, that is a transfer that will be going to the CRL Rights Commission, and that amount increases very marginally as you go into the outer years of 2022 and 2023. That's the total budget for this period and this particular financial year that we are talking about. On the next slide, if we can move to the next slide. We've just taken the same information and we're showing it through a pie chart to show what's the portion of the budget that goes to compensation of employees, what's the portion of the budget that goes to goods and services, and the other areas under economic classification as shown in the previous slide. You can then move to the final slide where we recommending to the portfolio committee to note the 2021-2022 APP of the department, as well as the MTF budget indicative allocations for the department for the period that we are looking at. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members.
Thank you very much, DG. Are you done?
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, am I audible?
You are cutting a bit, Chair.
The problem of network is the DG done.
Yes, Chair.
Apologies,
Yes, Chair, it's done.
Chair, the acting chair, honorable member, can you please switch off your video because you have a network problem, so the video may also contribute to the network problem.
All right, thanks, Whip. I want to do that. Thank you very much, DG, for your presentation. May I now, before recognizing members, recognize the presence of Nkosikazi Mhlawuli Bota Mama Dingalime Matsheli. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Deputy National Chair. Honorable members, that's the presentation. Can I now recognize hands that are looking for clarification or comments or a take on the presentation? May I recognize Honorable Tigeledi and Honorable Chabanchaba? Is that the only two at the moment? As well as Honorable Teza. Can you come in that order? Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Acting Chair. I've got a few questions for the department. Number one, I would like to check with the department that what is it that they are doing to deal with the current dispute within the institution of traditional leadership? And how long does it take for them to deal with those disputes if they appear in the traditional leadership? And secondly, what is the time frame attached to the research that will look into how different provinces have gone about the establishment of the local houses? And the third one, Chair, we are having women which are capable of ascending to the throne of power by becoming leaders of their respective tribe and occupy various positions in the traditional leadership institution. What is it that the DTA is doing to ensure that a progressive realization of the transformation in this sector is happening? And we also not pay. We also not
and away matches. This post-mortem World Cup place on the dates previously published. South Africa, more specific.
Tigeledi, we lost you, Honorable Tigeledi. Honorable Tigeledi, I lost you. Honorable
Chair.
member. Yes.
Chair, I think I'm having a very trouble network. Let me go to the fourth question. I would like to check with the department what is their responsibility in terms of aligning development in areas of traditional leadership with the district development model to accelerate socio-economic benefits of these communities. As we've as it is known that in one of the indabas that they had, one of the issues that were raised by the traditional leadership was lack of development in the traditional leaders' communities. So what is the plan that the department has in ensuring that those areas are incorporated in the district development models? And Chair, the other issue is we've been experiencing a challenge where some of the traditional leaders are raising a concern about not being able to be part of the council's meeting, and others who are part of council's meeting, they also raise a concern that they are just there as the observers, not a decision-taking bodies. So what is it that the department is doing in order to resolve this matter? To ensure that the council, in our councils, the traditional leaders are forming part of the councils, and also to raise this issue where the traditional leaders are raising a concern about not being part of the decision-taking body. Is there any legislation or a proposed legislation in place to deal with this matter? Or what are the other measures that they are dealing with? And not so long ago, Chair, we were discussing the issue of the initiation schools. And on the presentation of the department, it's mostly focusing on the new legislation that has been adopted now. But other matters, such as your initiations and others, I don't see them as part of their presentation. So I would like to get a clarity from the department as to why is it their presentation only based on one item, whereas we also have other issues that needs to be addressed by the department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tigeledi. Honorable Kabanchaba.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening. Let me greet our leadership, Deputy Minister, if he's still here, and my colleagues, and the department, and the traditional leaders who are present. Chairperson, let me also welcome the presentation from the DG of the traditional leadership department. Chair, my question in the traditional leaders, what is the role of the department in respect of the management and administration of traditional councils in the context of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act. What is the relationship between the Act and provincial legislature, such as the Mpompo Traditional Leadership and Institution Act of 2005, which provide on this matter? The APP also notes the instances in some provinces where there is a misalignment between national and provincial legislature, which leads to inconsistencies in the application of the legislature, thus exposing the state to possible litigation. What are the examples of these misaligned legislation, and what is the plan to address this? The APP undertakes to ensure that the department capacitates provinces to respond to the persistent despite on traditional leadership positions. What specific measures will the department undertake to achieve this capacitation, and how will it measure performance in this regard? And Chair, I want to ask the department how many traditional leaders per province who are under this budget from the department, because I want to concur with my whip, Honorable Dikeleti, about the traditional leaders who are crying about being excluded in this budget, under this department. I want to ask those questions, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
You are recognized. Thank you very much, Honorable Klabanchaba. May I now recognize Honorable Kayateza?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ukukhanya nekhaya zizinto ezimbini ezo ezahlukeneyo. Mna ndikweli cala lokukhanya. Kube cabanga kube chosi kubele kudedu kumnyama kuvela ukukhanya ligama lam that's
Amen for it.
Enkosi Chairperson. Chairperson, I remain appreciative of the actions that the department is taking in terms of ensuring that it cushions the traditional communities in many aspects. But I also remain with a question that does not seem to have projected in the presentation. The question of safety of traditional leaders, DG Mpompo. What measures have you taken as a department to ensure that the issue of safety is actually projected to a larger extent? Because the last time I spoke about this issue and referred to a community in KwaZulu-Natal And I can tell you now, DG, that I'm also carrying another dispute with me here. So if you are keen, then I can send this particular dispute to you so that you can look at it and see how far it has been resolved by the department or by the provinces. Whether you would have capacity to do so in terms of the budget that because I remember the last time we also spoke to the budget of the department. So that is the concern about that particular issue of Emangweni. And then Chairperson, then is the issue of the initiation. I wanted to ask the department as to what is the state of readiness of the department in essence in terms of ensuring that now there is no one that will be reported dead as a result of that practice. Is the department confident enough at this stage from where we are sitting to say that they are in a position to bring about medical practitioners on board so that now we don't talk to people always that are dead, and then we refer to the criminal element within that practice. What are measures to safeguard that particular practice now? Whether would the department say that they are in a position to safely say that no deaths will be, because Chair, any death in South Africa should be treated as a criminal offense, and consequences should be seen to be implemented, and the Department of Traditional Affairs must be seen to be effective. Whether the National Treasury must come on board in terms of capacity should be amongst issues that we discuss in the committee, to say that they really have to take this debt seriously, and people must be held to account, and people must go to jail. Those are killing people. So that we set a precedent as a committee to say that anybody who has been found to have been part of abduction and of wrongfully orientating these children will be held to account and face the full might of the law. That's the seriousness that Chairperson should get at in terms of what should be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Cesar. I think that's the few questions so far. Can we now allow the department through the DG and the DDGs to respond to the number of questions and the comments? DG?
Thank you very much.
Chairperson, can I start so that I can leave? And the DG will deal with all the difficult and technical questions. Chairperson, if you allow.
Deputy Minister, to start so that you may be able to leave.
And thank you very much. No. As I earlier indicated, DG, you can see even the APP is not coming very strong on certain issues where we know they are in other departments, like it's a resolution that there shall be an agrarian revolution. But when you look at the APP model, that it says monitoring them in all the provinces. We don't say implement them in the whole provinces. So monitoring and implementation are two things. Because there's no budget in the DTA to implement, we just monitor. And therefore the budget was with the CWP, if you remember well, when we were engaging on this issue of the agrarian revolution. And therefore, we can't say we will implement, we rather say we will monitor. And it means you are monitoring those who have the budget to implement the agrarian revolution. So it's neither here nor there. It's something that obviously is a difficult issue. It's a resolution that we need to really fast track and implement. And then CWP is in DCOC, is not in the DTA. And the budget is in DTA, it's with the CWP. But also there are quite a number of challenges which will have to come back to the portfolio committee as just giving progress on the implementation by the CWP and the challenges that were observed in the monitoring by the DTA. But for now, it's an APP that is restrictive, just says, what did you do? We said we'll monitor. Did we monitor? Yes, we did monitor. Is the implementation going well? It doesn't give you space to do so. But the agrarian revolution is coming very softly, obviously, in these circumstances. It only appears here as more like a food security matter, not a socio-economic development. And it's supposed to be a socio-economic development that begins to contribute to the rural economy. But for now, the way it is, even the way it's been implemented, is just a food security matter. But I think at one point then we'll have to really come and give a full report on that. Then the second area that obviously is not in our mandate, however, the traditional leaders are the people who have a mandate that this department is responsible for, is the resolution on the issues of land and the land use. This is with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. And in as far as this report indicates, it says it can only look at the issue of security of tenure. But the resolution, the land issues that are raised by traditional leaders, they go beyond security of tenure. You remember, they have that program that we will be coming to Parliament with, now that it has been concluded, on the model of ownership of the communal land, on the transfer of land to the people on through the traditional leadership systems, but also issues security of tenure, land use, plumas, all of them are all resting in this one. But we can't write it as our APP because the mandate is not in us. However, we do support and we do work with the Department of Agriculture. So that's why I said earlier when I was doing the opening remarks that there are these particular certain mandates that do not fall within us. It depends on the arrangements, engagements, and agreements with the departments, sister departments, for us to fulfill. We're able to push on this one, at least in the next APP, definitely it will come out better to say, working with who has the mandate, we're able to pursue. And now there's an offer on the table, there's a proposals on the table, which will be considered around the land question and the use of land. And then how that land is going to be used for economic benefit for the rural communities. Then when you look at the APP now from ourselves, social cohesion is in arts and culture. It's another department. On this one, fortunately, we have an agreement, what we call the MOU. But that MOU is not being fulfilled. So those are the issues that I will be engaging to say, what is it that we make this MAU to be fulfilled? The participation, as you can see, is just GBV and food security, as in the APP reported to the portfolio committee. So, but the issues of nation building, social cohesion, how we can use cultures, traditions to really contribute to the social cohesion of our society, to fight patriarchy in society, and all sorts of things. We need a very good collaboration with arts and culture, who has the mandate, and then us bringing the sector of the traditional leaders into it so that they can really champion and ensure that they fulfill what the Constitution requires of them. The Constitution says that they are custodians of culture and traditions, and they play that role as custodians in the social cohesion. That is something else that we all then really to have it in the MOU, because the mandate is elsewhere, and then but the people whose mandate is to be fulfilled, they are in the DTA, which is the traditional leaders through their houses, that should really be championing beyond just GBV, which is a key program, but there are other issues. And the traditional leaders has taken so many resolutions around looking at the harmful practices that are not contributing to social cohesion in society, which some have been practiced in this communal in the communities. At what point are we now group this and then take them to the table of social cohesion and make sure, therefore, that they are get done with, because culture is not static, culture is evolving, and culture must adapt. And then in the adaptation, this is the issues. But we have to depend on the sister department, just by the 3 examples that I've just given now. And then there's the issue of the maximum participation of traditional leaders in the DDM. Is touch and go on it, but it is within the DCOG, which is part of COGTA, to make sure, therefore, that we maximize their participation. As I think the question was asked, the participation of traditional leaders, even in the council, we ought to maximize. Now we have got a TKLA, which is more empowering. And obviously, when we go forward in the next APP, we will then have to make sure, therefore, that the TKLA expression on the participation of traditional leaders in the council and maximizing that participation, including their participation in the DTM, must be a strong proposal or a program that must emerge within the APP. And then the issue of the disputes, I think, is been raised, and then we take note of it. It should be a standalone program also, or probably within this, it becomes a sub-program around the institution of traditional leaders being supported. The disputes are increasing, no longer about we are not being recognized by Nhlapo Commission or not recognized by this or that. It's more the royal families in fights that are on the increase, because they will be fighting about who is on the throne. It's no longer about us not being recognized or being left out in the Nhlapo Commission arrangement. But in the main, all of them are now recognized. Instead of it stabilizing, occupying its space and its role in society, there's now this many infights. People are claiming the throne, that this one was not the one, the other is. And I think that's a program that we take note. I think quite a number of honorable members have read. Honorable Dikeledi raised it. Pretty Klaba is also raised. And I think Kanya, so that you don't say, I didn't say Kanya this time. They've all raised it, and I think it must be a stand or a sub-program of that we need really to focus on and really bring stability and then bring to an end all disputes so that the sector can now transform, and the sector must grow, and the sector ought to play its meaningful role in social cohesion and in nation building. So we take it, and I think DG will take it with a good spirit that we'll then have to strengthen that. But the rest of others around the initiations and then all sorts of things, I'll leave it to you. Thank you, Chair. It was just to really say we are caught up as this department that some mandates do not reside with us, but The TKLA will bring some kind of relief going forward. But obviously, as I said, that the MOUs ought to be engaged and agreed to. There must be action plans that are there, because even if you can ask now the question, this MOU with Agriculture Department, is it functioning? In terms of the compliance, we have signed it, we have achieved our goal. We can even get a green around that. But whether it's functional, it's been implemented, is an action plan, what are the activities in each? It's just an MOU that has been signed and agreed to. And I think the words monitoring, where we don't have a mandate, you'll understand, therefore we can only monitor, but we can't implement, and it will just come out as monitoring. I hope you'll then bear with us around that issue, but once the MOUs are there, we'll then be able to say, having signed this MOU with X department, together, we are now involved in the implementation using the budget allocated by that department, not us, but we'll be able then to say, having signed, these are the agreements, and in the agreements, the following are being implemented. Thank you very much, honorable members. I'll just take a few minutes for the DG to respond to the rest, and then I'll then be departing the meeting. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DM, for your input and exposing somewhat misalignment of your commandate with some of the programs that are seated in other departments, and then therefore which are limiting the actual scope and the performance of government to monitoring rather than running exactly with the core program around the socio-economic development of the traditional institutions. May we now recognize the DTG? The DG, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Acting Chair, and thanks to the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Babela, as well, for the inputs that have been made in terms of the questions that have been asked. With your permission, Chair, I would just like to invite the DDGs as well to come in. DDG Mamohaladi, if you could come in and provide further insights on some of the issues that the honorable members have raised.
Thank you, DG, and good evening, honorable members, and also greetings to our traditional leaders who have joined, members of the National House, the chairperson of the National House, and the deputy chairperson, and good evening to the deputy minister. There was a question on some questions on the disputes and claims. Honorable Direko asked a question of what are we doing as the Department of Traditional Affairs to deal with disputes and claims.
DDG, members would like to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for that. There were some questions on disputes and claims, and Honorable Direko asked a question on what are we doing in terms of the disputes and claims and to deal with all the disputes and the disputes. The issue of disputes and claims, if in terms of the legislation, there are different levels of traditional leadership, and there are different levels where you find that the disputes may be coming from the different levels of traditional leadership, and the mandate for dealing with disputes and claims, or even the recognitions and the appointments of those that will be for the kings and the queens, or kingships and queenships, they reside with national. And then the other levels of disputes within the institution, they will they reside with traditional leaders below that level. So how we deal with that, because we are not empowered by the legislation to deal with the ones below kinships and queenships. What we have done as the department, we previously, which we still have, we developed the framework on disputes, resolution of disputes and claims, which we are using as a guideline to also empower the royal families to establish the systems for the identification of and withdrawal of the successors. And in terms of the legislation, the royal family is the one that will identify who is the person to ascend the throne. It is not a government, it's not a government function, that one. So they identify, and I can say they are the ones actually appointing, because they identify. Then what government then does, in the case of the kings and the queens, then they will submit to the president to recognize that person. And in the case of those below, then they will submit below the level of kings and queens, they will then submit to the premier to recognize the person. So it is important, because indeed we have many challenges in this area. So it is important that at royal family level, there are systems to deal with, or effective systems to deal with disputes and claims. So the framework that I'm talking about is we were going to royal families. We started with the ones for kinships, queenships and principal traditional leadership, so that we empower them in terms of their own systems to deal with disputes and claims. And as members may be aware that the whole appointment or identification of the heirs to the throne, that process is guided by the customary law and the customs of that royal family or the traditional community. So we have, with the framework, we are empowering them, but we also have another project of documenting customary laws of succession and genealogies, because each and every royal family, they will have their own customary law of succession, and then they will have a genealogy. So we thought through that project, where we assist and support the royal families to document their own customary law, and we have books in that regard. Most of the kinships, we were assisted, and 2 principal traditional leaders in the Free State. So when we talk to or we engage the royal families, we say through this book, then it should be a guide to them when they identify an heir. And through that process, then they can then reduce the disputes, because now they know who should then ascend the throne, and they sign off on these customary laws of succession once we have assisted them. But the information, the content of that book, it comes from the royal family, because they know their customary law and customs than the department. So the department is just there to help them document, and then some of the books have also been published. And I want to also tie it to the question on what are we doing to address the issue of women ascending to the throne, and just making sure that within the institution of traditional leadership, there is, the institution conforms to the Bill of Rights, and the principles of equality and so on. So the same project, as we do the project on documentation of customary laws and customs, because the legislation provides that the institution or traditional leaders should adapt their customary laws. It's one of their key roles. They must adapt the customary laws and their customs to conform to the Bill of Rights. So as we help them with the documentation, we also just indicate that to them, empower them on that, and say, maybe you need to look at your customs and customary laws to consider or to make sure that it conforms to the Bill of Rights and there is equality within the institution. There was also a question on how long it will take us to do the research on the local houses. We have put this as a target for 2021-22, as members may be aware, in our APP, and we are envisaging a situation where we will take the whole financial year conducting that research, because we need extensive research on the different dispensations. What was happening is that with the Framework Act, provinces were empowered to come up with their own legislation on the establishment or constitution of the local houses of traditional leaders. So now that we have got TKLA, it is important that we look at that. So what I mean is that there were different legal regimes in the different provinces in relation to local houses of traditional leaders. And then this research, we are hoping that we will analyze those pieces of legislation from different provinces, look at the good practices from different provinces, like the DG has indicated, so that when we now develop the regulations which are provided for in Section 50 of the TKLA, then the content of the regulations are informed. And we have also interviewed or did the research and engaged various stakeholders, traditional leaders, provinces, and all other role players, so that the content of the legislation, they address all, if there were challenges with the different legal regimes, then we make sure that the content will address those challenges with the local houses. So we envisage a situation where we will conduct this research for this financial year, and in the next financial year, then we develop the regulations that are informed. And there was also a question on alignment. Yes, there was a question from Honorable Chava on what is it that you are doing to align provincial legislation with national legislation. The national legislation should, or provincial pieces of legislation, they should be aligned to national legislation. But you'll find instances where there will be misalignment, especially with the Framework Act. We have identified that challenge. So because we learned lessons with the Framework Act, with the TKLA, what we are going to do, hence we presented that we are conducting workshops with provinces, just to ensure that they understand the TKLA. There is the same interpretation of the TKLA, but that will not end there. We will then we will work with provinces when they now develop their own pieces of legislation. But some provinces may just choose that they will just implement TKLA. as it is, and that will not be a problem as well. But those who will be developing pieces of legislation in terms of the TKLA, we will be working closely with those provinces to ensure that there is alignment of the provincial and national legislation. I think those are the questions, DG and Chairperson, which I can respond to. Thank you. And my other colleagues, DG will guide. They may take other questions first. Thanks. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, thank you. If I may come in.
DG, are you done?
Yes. Well, just perhaps, I don't know if DDG Mashandu wants to add something. I want to just make two additions, but let me just check with Mashandu if she wants to make an addition. Okay, there seems to be a problem with that connection, Chair. I just also wanted to add, Chairperson, that I think one of the useful developments on this issue of disputes is the provision that the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act has included, which was not there in the Framework Act. So there are specifications in terms of Section 59, Chapter 5, when it deals with disputes. And for the first time, what the section does is to then outline a mechanism that can assist provinces and national government when it comes to dealing with disputes. So it particularly empowers when it comes to a dispute that relates to a traditional leadership below that of kingship and queenship. And it specifies the process there, that the Premier may appoint a committee that investigates the dispute, that committee shall include at least one member of the Provincial House. That committee then will conclude its work, make its report known with recommendations. That report then goes to the royal family for comments on the report. And similarly at national level, it says then the president appoints such a committee, and it should include at least a member of the National House, which will do the investigation, come back with the recommendation that then goes to the royal family for comments. I think I'm raising this, honorable members, because there wasn't this kind of provision before. So when there is a dispute that arises, apart from other processes that government can follow, there would then be the issue of the courts. Obviously, individuals and royal families will still have the right to approach the courts, but at least there is now a mechanism provided for in legislation that royal families can make use of, that provincial government can make use of, and national government can make use of before people take the step of approaching the courts. So I think that is a useful aspect of this process. In terms of the issues of initiation, I think the Honorable Deputy Minister has spoken to some of them. Ultimately, Honorable Chesa, I think outside the enabling framework of the Customary Initiation Act, which specifies in detail the requirements around registration of initiation schools, about the fines that can be imposed in case there is non-compliance, in terms of the roles of parents, the roles of caregivers, the roles, as we've discussed those issues with the committee before. What we then end up making use of are the guidelines, the policy guidelines that were developed. Obviously, useful as they may be, there is a challenge in terms of the extent to which enforcement can take place. At the moment, the committee would recall there was a discussion on the summer initiation in the Eastern Cape, and they asked for a detailed report, which I believe has since been submitted to the committee. But members would note that there are cases that have been opened, that the police have been brought in to make sure that they investigate those cases. But all of this gets done under the enabling provisions that exist at the moment outside the Customary Initiation Act. Honorable Gaza particularly asked about the issue of medical doctors and their involvement in this process. And that is a recommendation. It's a very strong recommendation. The Customary Initiation Act specifically says that where it is traditional surgeons that are performing the procedure, it must be done under the supervision of medical doctors. But at the moment, there isn't a requirement that this should be done under the supervision of medical doctors. So it is a strong recommendation that is being promoted as far as possible, but obviously, ultimately, you will not be able to enforce it where there is a different choice that is made in this regard. So I think the issues of readiness and awareness raising and so on will be done as far as possible within the provisions of existing policy frameworks. And then perhaps just finally to talk about this issue of transformation. I think if you look at the provisions of the Act, this issue of the constitution and reconstitution of councils, they are those specific requirements that have been included about representativity of women in the structures of traditional leadership. Now, as we have this new window of opportunities for the reconstitution of traditional councils across the board, this is one of the issues that we're going to have to keep an eye on to make sure that there is representativity of women. That then gets taken alongside other aspects that relate to transformation, because that's a very important transformation imperative in the sector when it comes to the issue of representativity. I hope that I've touched on the other outstanding issues that may have been raised, Honorable Acting Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. Before honorable members, perhaps if there are any who would like to have follow-ups. From my side, DG and DM, how does the Traditional Cohesion Leadership Act give expression to the Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act? And are the provisions relating to the section adequate to replace the need for regulations on the participation of traditional leaders in the municipal councils? And now that also the chair and the deputy of the National House are with us, is the department and the National House in a position to share with the committee the draft report on the powers and the functions of the traditional leaders, which are expected to inform the work of traditional leaders? Thank you. DJ?
Thank you, Honorable Acting Chair. On the issue of Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act, indeed, the two pieces of legislation proceeded together in parallel when the amended Municipal Structures Act was being considered by Parliament. The earlier Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act was, although it made provision for the participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils, it didn't provide details. It didn't provide clarity in terms of that section. And the expectation in terms of that section was that the MEC in a province will then issue regulations in this regard to make sure that those regulations elaborate on how the issue of participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils can take place. So as part of coming up with the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act, a schedule was developed as part of that act, which schedule was intended to replace Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act. And so with the passing of the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act and it coming into effect, that then schedule effectively replaces Section 81. And in fact, if you look at the final amended Municipal Structures Act, you'll see that there is a much more detailed Section 81. So some of the things that were left for MECs to pronounce on, the new Section 81 deals with them already. So what that section does, it states clearly how the representation of recognized traditional leaders, and then of course in future, the Cohesion leaders, once they've been recognized, how their representation in the proceedings of municipal councils will be determined. It stipulates their roles, it stipulates their functions, it stipulates their responsibilities, the responsibilities of those traditional leaders who participate in the proceedings of municipal councils. And in fact, it also requires them to report back on their participation in their own councils of traditional leadership and the relevant houses of traditional and Cohesion leadership. So these issues were not dealt with at all before. They were left to MECs individually to determine per province. So I think what we now see in the revised, elaborate Section 81 as contained in the Municipal Structures Act, we see much more detail, which can guide the process going forward. I just think, just even in terms of the length of the new Section 81 is much longer than the few paragraphs that were contained, because this level of detail was not there before in the prior Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act. Chairperson, you asked about the issue of the powers and functions. What has happened with that work? The approach that was taken was to convert that into a discussion document based on the work that was done through a task team between the National House of Traditional Leaders as well as government, COCTA more specifically. And the final position that was adopted was that in addition to further engagements that would be undertaken within the House on the draft, there will be further engagements that will take place within government itself on the proposal, so that once that process has been exhausted, so perhaps more like what we have now, where consultations are taking place on communal land tenure policy and options are put on the table, then we have something that has been consulted widely within government and widely also amongst the members of the institutional traditional leadership, and then it gets made available at that time. That was the understanding that that we had, Chairperson, in terms of the processing internally of that work that was done. Thanks, Chairperson.
Honorable Mamkhize, Honorable Nchabaklaba, is your hand up?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. I'm
Thank you.
recognizing you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I have a follow-up to the teaching in the Department of Traditional Affairs. Firstly, Chair.
Yes.
My question that I asked before, they being asked some, but there is a one that left behind, which I was asking to the department that how many traditional leaders per province that are registered under this budget of the department. And also, Chair, what are the timelines for the introduction of the Investage Handbook for traditional leadership that will provide clarity on the provision of enabling resources to traditional leadership? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nchabaklaba. Over to you, DG.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Klaba Nchaba. My apologies. We omitted that issue in relation to the budget. The budget that we presenting here as allocated to the Department of Traditional Leaders, the Department of Traditional Affairs, in terms of those who are accommodated in this budget directly as traditional leaders, it would be members of the National House of Traditional Leaders, because the expectation is that the other spheres of government then come in. So when it comes to the salaries of senior traditional leaders, the provinces come in. When it comes to the salaries of headmen and headwomen, provincial governments come in. When it comes to the salaries of kings and queens, provincial government departments come in. Indeed, when it comes to a whole range of other things, their benefits, their tools of trade, and so on, it's the provinces that come in. So to the extent that traditional leaders outside the National House of Traditional Leaders will benefit from the impact of this budget, it would be in other ways. I mean, for example, when we have been working on development of a training or induction program, that's an induction program that ultimately benefit the rest of the sector. And indeed, if you look at the range of other initiatives that we are focusing on, the intention is for them to benefit the rest of the sector. But in terms of direct benefit, how many traditional leaders per province are included in this budget? Unfortunately, we have to say that the allocation here is for purposes of the salaries, seating allowances, and other tools of trade that can be accommodated within this resource envelope for members of the National House of Traditional Leaders, with the understanding that the rest are to be taken care of by the provinces themselves. I know that there is one other issue the honourable member has raised. I don't know if the colleagues are able to remember that one and assist with.
Can I assist?
Please.
With that, yes. I was asking that what are the timelines for the introduction of the envisaged handbook for traditional leadership that will provide clarity on the provision of enabling resources to traditional leadership. Thank you.
Through you, Honorable Chair. Thanks once again, Honorable Xaba Ntshaba. And so from our side, administratively, the draft handbook has been developed. So the issue is now the consultations that need to take place. As we may have indicated to the committee before, a critical issue was that before you go too far into the consultation processes, we don't want a handbook that gets approved and ultimately we end up with a situation where there is an indication from maybe some provinces that they don't have the resources to implement the handbook. So the approach that has been adopted here, Honorable Chair, was that in its current form, it should be costed, which has been done. And then the handbook together with the costing should then be processed through the budget forum, where you have the Minister of Finance, the provincial MECs of Finance, the provincial COCTA MECs, our minister as well, so that there is a focused discussion on the costing itself, so that when we say here is a handbook that then gets implemented, because the expectation here is that at a later stage, the minister will use the provisions contained in the Traditional and Cohesion Leadership Act to issue this as norms and standards, which, unlike the earlier framework that was developed and adopted by MINMIC, the implementation is still uneven. So I'm saying that I think that part has been done. I'm unfortunately not in a position to commit in terms of that process within the budget forum, but I think insofar as we are concerned as a department, the expectation is that handbook on traditional leadership should reach its finality during the course of this financial year, so that actual implementation can take place. But obviously, there are a number of processes now built into it that may be outside the competence of the department itself. Thanks, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable President.
May I come in?
Yeah, you may.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just wanted to make a follow-up, Chairperson, just a quick one. I just wanted to check, man. Sorry to say, man, Honorable Member. Chairperson, you know, the customary, I wanted to ask on the issue of the customary law of succession, just to get an understanding right there from the DG in terms of their role in the event that a king or a queen passes on without a will, and the first child of the king or a queen being a girl child. What becomes their resolve in terms of that? Because in a patriarchal society such as ours, the issue is that the indlalifa it becomes often becomes a man, and what then the department will do in terms of bringing about a solution in that particular case, because you know, it says that chairperson it's often required that only males may inherit from a deceased estate, which is what I am saying in terms of the current society that we are of patriarchy. What is it that the department does in that situation to protect in line with the customary law of succession to resolve that situation, to protect a vulnerable members of the community, as it were? Because chairperson, you would know that in traditional communities, women are vulnerable and are often deprived of access to land and access to many rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kaiser. DJ?
Honorable Chair, thanks, Honorable Kaiser. I think this is a huge issue, and I think it's linked to the point Honorable Dureko raised earlier about transformation of the sector, and I think it's also linked to the position that the Institution of Traditional Leadership adopted in 2017 when they had their resolutions about harmful cultural practices, because if you have customary laws of succession that discriminate, then that becomes a problem. So the Constitution in Chapter 12 recognizes the Institution of Traditional Leadership and says they can observe and apply customary law where the law is applicable, but then the Constitution goes further to say subject to the Constitution. So which means that if that customary law of succession is discriminatory in nature, then it can be challenged in terms of whether it is in line with what the Constitution says. So it's a big area of focus for ourselves and the Institution of Traditional Leadership, because we are not going to be able to win this alone. It's part of that transformation that should take place. If you look at the legislation as it has been presented, where if, as the honorable member says, a senior traditional leader unfortunately passes on, and then the customary laws of succession says it must be the first child, but the first child happens to be a girl, what then happens? Because the law has to date simply said that the royal family, following customary law, then makes a recommendation. In the case of leadership levels below a kingship and queenship, they make that recommendation to the premier. In case of a leadership level at a kingship or and queenship level, they make that recommendation to the president. And if the royal family says this is how we have decided in terms of customary law, then it presents a challenge where if an argument is made, for example, that our customary law says it must be the first child, but if the first child is a girl, then it must go to the second one if the second one is a boy. How do you deal with that? So it's a big issue that is on the table at the moment in terms of ourselves and the institution itself to make sure that we address it. Currently, there is already case law, as members of the committee might know. There is already case law on the table in the specific case of Dr. Hosi Nomito, where it was a similar set of circumstances and the court ruled in her favor. Members of the committee might know also that we have a case that has been reported in the media. It's still within the courts about the Bavenda kinship, where a decision was made which was challenged on the grounds that it was discriminatory, was based on the fact that the person who succeeds must be a male, and it was challenged successfully in the Supreme Court of Appeal, where the Supreme Court of Appeal then referred the matter back and said, no, there must be a process in the High Court to re-look at this matter. And the court specifically said in its ruling that in looking at this matter, the court must not look at it through gender lenses. And so I think what we're beginning to see, in addition to the work that, for example, the National House is leading in this area, where we're working with them, we're beginning to see a body of case law that then begins to help us in taking this process forward. Obviously, ultimately, what would need to happen is for this to begin to make an impact where it matters most, which is at the level of the royal families themselves, so that there's an appreciation that the courts of the land have ruled that these decisions can be made on that basis. And secondly, also just in terms of the interventions that the leadership of the institution of traditional leadership, the houses and so on are making, that impact begins to filter at a lower level. But admittedly, Honorable Cesa, it's still a challenge that we are seized with. And as I've indicated, I think case law is beginning to come in to assist. Unfortunately, we end up relying on case law when we should be dealing with issues amongst ourselves, as opposed to relying on the courts to intervene. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Teacher. Thank you, Teacher. We feel that members, I think they have exhausted their questions and comments. But I think that here we have Inkosi Mahlangu and Unkosikazi Mhlawuli, both the chair and the deputy of the National House. Inkosi Mahlangu, what is your take of the APPs as presented to the committee? Can we allow you to get in before I allow the chair of the committee to wrap up?
Good evening, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Maybe, Chair, before I come in, if we check if the Deputy Chairperson of the National House would want to make any input, and then one can come in after her, if the Chairperson would allow that.
Chair, we can't see Inkosi Mahlangu.
And we can't hear him as well.
You can't see me and you can't hear me.
Well, we can't see you, Inkosi Mahlangu. We do hear you at a distance.
But my video is on, Chair.
You have now you are audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Can you see?
Not 100%, Chair. It's not audible 100%.
Okay, I'm not sure, Chair, but I'm very close to my gadget.
Oh, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you, Chair. Members, do you hear the Inkosi Mahlangu?
Yes, we are, but we can't see him.
Yes, Chair, we can hear him.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
hear
they do
Inkosi.
hear you, Inkosi Mahlangu, but they say they can't see you.
I'm not sure, Chair, but my video is on, so I'm not sure because I can see myself on the video.
Oh, yes. Continue, Inkosi Mahlangu.
No, thank you, Chair. I was saying I'm not sure if the Deputy Chairperson of the House would want to say anything. You know, if she would want to say something, maybe she could start, and then I will come after her.
Mama Nkosi Mhlawuli,
Acting Chair.
are you with us?
Yes, Acting Chair. Good evening, Chair. Honorable
evening.
members of the Portfolio Committee, Chairperson Nkosi Mahlangu. First of all, Chair, I must appreciate the presentations by the department and also appreciate that we have been invited to this meeting. Thank you very much, Chair. On the issue of the APPs, Chair, as UDM Babela indicated that the challenge is about activities we'll be talking about which are not part of our department. Sometimes if we don't understand that as the traditional leaders, we may blame our department, saying that they are not implementing them. But when we have got this meeting like this, where everything is clarified that, no, we can monitor this one, but we cannot implement. And that is true, Chair. As it has happened when we're excited about the agrarian revolution, we wanted to move with a high speed, but we couldn't move because we were just excited with our department, but we are not the implementers of that agrarian revolution. So, Chair, I appreciate the input from from the members of the Portfolio Committee, and these inputs, they show exactly that you have got interest on the issue of traditional leadership. And I will really appreciate that because we need to be assisted, especially the issue of the handbook, which has been there for a long time. But UDG has just explained. So I don't have much to say, but also assisting us on the issue of the women representation. And the department, I'm sure, is going to assist in the capacitation of women, because sometimes women are reluctant to take part because they've got that that idea that women whose place is at home in the kitchen. So we still have a lot of work to do to capacitate women to take their positions. Thank you, Chairperson.
Enkosi Mama Mhlawuli. Inkosi Mahlangu.
No, thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Let me first greet the Deputy Minister, Ubaba Obed Babela, greet you, Chair, and the revered members of this committee, our DDGs, and I think our CEO, who is part of this meeting, and officials. No, Chair, maybe let me also echo the sentiments that have been echoed by all in terms of appreciating the presentation that has just been presented, but also do say that we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go, Chair. I'm a bit frustrated, but I think the department is doing what is within their powers, despite all the problems in terms of not having a proper budget. That's why I think we had one member that was asking in relation to how many traditional leaders are assigned to this budget. I mean, we are all aware that the House can't really can't perform its function with the budget that we have. All that we are doing and what the department is doing is trying to comply to the legislation. But if you look at our budget in terms of goods and services, there isn't much left for anything to be done. What is even more frustrating, Chair, is that we've just embarked on a very huge program as the National House, where we have launched an Invest Rural Master Plan, a master plan that seeks to address challenges that are there in rural areas, of which we are hoping that this Department of Traditional Affairs is supposed to assist us towards achieving that, where we turn challenges that are there in rural areas into investable opportunities. But yeah, I think we'll still have to sit and properly address this issue together with the department at the right platform. I guess maybe one might be crying at the wrong funeral in relation to the budget of the department, because it doesn't seem as if we are all sharing the cries, so maybe one is complaining in the wrong place, Chair. Maybe we might have to find a platform where we need to go and fight the issue of the budget for the department, because I can tell you now that the institution is extremely frustrated. And I'm not going to try and pretend that everything is well. Things are not well, hence you have the sector trying to take government to court because of the frustrations that the sector is experiencing. And I'm happy that members of this committee are trying to unravel the challenges that are there in this department. I think if you go back to questions that were raised around Section 81, I could hear the explanations, but the biggest challenge, members in provinces are rejecting the amendment on Section 81. You go to KZN, where the department was trying to implement the amended Section 81, traditional leaders are rejecting it. And in all other provinces, we're hearing the same complaint that people don't understand the wisdom of the department reducing the number of traditional leaders that are supposed to be represented in municipal councils, because there's no clear explanation why that has been done. Because if we were to address issues that were left to the decision of the MECs, we don't know why it had to affect the numbers of traditional leaders that are participating in municipalities. So those are the cries that we are getting from our colleagues in provinces, that they are rejecting the amendment. They don't even want to discuss the amendment, because they've just realized that instead of the legislation that said that 20% of the councillors that are in a municipality that has traditional leaders will comprise of traditional leaders, but that has been altered, and I don't think that there's been a proper explanation in relation to that question. But I think, be that as it may, Chair, let me appreciate what the DG has presented, and the DGs. They are trying their level best to work within the confines that they have as the department, and the frustrations that are there in relation to the budget allocation of the department. But I think would also continue to try and assist the department, especially in terms of implementing the Invest Rural program, because it is not reliant on government, but we are involving as many private sector entities as possible to be able to change the lives of our communities. I mean, if you talk poverty, if you talk joblessness, you're talking mainly of people that are residing in rural areas, and those are people that we are working with, and those are people that we are supposed to be leading as traditional leaders. And I think if we continue playing a supportive role that has been determined by legislation, we would not be able to change the lives of those communities. So we've decided to take the bull by its horns. We've decided to take the lead in development as traditional leaders through this master plan that we came up with, of which we're hoping that it will go a long way in terms of addressing the challenges that are there in rural areas. No, thank you for the opportunity, Chair.
Thanks, Coach Masango. Thank you very much. Honorable members and DG and the leadership and the Honorable Deputy Minister in absentia. The APP apparently makes bold reference to participation of the institution of traditional leadership in investment programs for inclusive growth and also for the promotion of land reform and rural development, and in particular the full utilization of communal land in the district. This also encompasses the agrarian revolution, which was for socio-economic development in the traditional communities. But the fact that some of these programs, like the community works program and as well as the agrarian revolution, are not the core mandate of the department. And then also the fact that your intervention through your cultural economy, but this also not being the core mandate of the department, being numbered on other sector department, actually poses a challenge and the gaps that DG going forward. These are matters, and as well as your limited budget to actually resource that is the institution of traditional leadership, so that they are seized with a full-blown development in the traditional communities and the full participation in the municipal councils. These are matters that going forward, perhaps we have to work on to ensure that we're aligned, and also that transformation, policy development and policy formulation that actually relates to ensuring that transformation of the institution of traditional leadership so that they're inclusive and are ensuring that women are liberated to fully participate meaningfully in the institution of traditional leadership by taking over also around the issues of kingship and queenship. I think, thank you very much, DTG and the DG and the DTGs and the whole contingent of the department and the DM for your presentation and participation, as well as the honorable members. Can we now, colleagues, agree to adjourn this committee meeting? We thank you very much, Inkosi Mahlangu and your deputy, Mama Umhlawumbi. The meeting is stand adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Long live the chair.
Nkosi Sihlalo.
Thank you, Chair.
Unbulisele Nkosi Mamhlawule ekhaya.
Awusagoduki wena Cesa.
Kunzima.
Bengushwa uyafunwa pha. Goduka uhlela beMpumalanga.
Untima. Maphoqe.
Kunzima. That's right.
All right, Nkokheli.
So ndiyabulela Nkokheli.